Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Chato, and this is a preface to the video that I'm about to share. And I thought it would be helpful as I'm gonna mention kind of a little bit of an outline for folks, and also a topic that comes up sometimes. For one, I mean, this is the idea that this is an approach that hopefully, and this is one of many potential futures, and these are some ideas that we can implement and edit as as you all choose, and hopefully that they can appeal to those on the left and the right and the center, as a way for humans to essentially take back control of the financial markets and be in guide our own future together, right? So one thing we're going to talk about, or I'm going to touch on, is free speech, and then also going to talk about global warming, and then also the power that corporations have over most of our lives, and what we can do about that are some options to address them. So I'll talk about each of those in turn. So the other thing I'm going to touch on briefly is the concept of narcissism. I decided to put this at the beginning of the recording because it comes up often enough that if I don't, it's potential that some people will just make assumptions, and many people do, and that's okay. Not everyone, but um, so there's a book called Rethinking Narcissism by Dr. Craig Malkin from the Harvard Medical School. And the idea is that narcissism exists on a spectrum. On the upper end of the spectrum are people that are basically addicted to feeling special. Lower end of the spectrum, people that avoid feeling special, like the plague, essentially. Um, Admittedly, I historically have tended toward the lower end, but at the moment, I mostly hang out in the middle. And vulnerability apparently is the antidote to that, and so I try to embrace vulnerability wherever I can. And part of this recording is, me talking about my reality with folks, and feeling less special about it because of that. Um, and there's a good movie called Ad Astra. Like Brad Pitt's character. So want to have some compassion for folks that are on the upper end of the spectrum or tend toward the upper end of the spectrum, uh, and um, and also but something else that I don't mention later, but I feel like it's useful, is that the idea that many organizations are essentially um, dictatorships, right? Corporations um, are more like dictatorships than they are like democracies, of course, right? But that kind of like lends itself, encourages um, narcissistic behavior, and part of shifting toward what I want to propose is that we shift toward organizations where we get to select our leaders, and also early humans. Most early humans tribes had multiple chiefs, not single chiefs. And in the book, it talks about isolation. The isolation can create an environment that nurtures narcissism, and so it's like it's possible that it might be helpful for us to shift toward organizations that have multiple chiefs, not just one. Um, Multiple CEOs, for example. Um, okay, getting into the primary recording, and thank you all for listening. And I am so sorry that it's so long. I do apologize. I did try to make it shorter. But, thank you. I don't mention this anywhere else in the recording, but if you are interested in helping with D7, either with the software development or with verifying users or some other aspect of the effort, please do apply. We'd love to meet you. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Chato, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm speaking to you from my home here. I have some stuff to share about a thing that I've been working on, and some ideas that I've been cooking up. But I've had a lot of help from a lot of different people. I really appreciate everybody's input. And in the spirit of Brene Brown's work about vulnerability, I'm going to try to lead with vulnerability a little bit. I for the last 10-ish years, I worked for IBM. I was leading various aspects of software development. I was working maybe 50 to 60 hours a week, depending on the week. And I wasn't getting enough sleep. And I did a lot of things for my health. And I found out, learned a bunch of stuff that helped. But, if I didn't get enough sleep, and it kind of didn't, it was always somewhat subpar. And also, I have a daughter, 9-year-old, and we didn't really get to spend a lot of time together. And I would have liked to spend more time with her. And so, necessity is the mother of invention. And I tried to find a way to solve for that. And it seems like I might have. The idea is that we would shift away from corporations as our primary vehicle for investing, and our primary vehicle for working, as employees. And we can shift toward employee-owned businesses that could provide a return to investors in the same way that corporations can do today. And these employee-owned businesses would be more democratic, and we get to select our leaders, and we get to choose, negotiate how many hours we want to work and what makes sense, and our pay too, so that be more equitable within the organization, and not so much of it would be with the CEO and the CFO, and be shared across the organization. That's kind of the idea. And the how that we get there is a platform. It's an alternative stock market, basically, that would allow us to invest in anything we choose, including these employee-owned businesses and traditional stocks and bonds, etc. And that platform would be democratic. Users would have voting rights in that platform, and be direct democracy. And so you can have ballot initiatives and all that kind of stuff. And I talk a lot about that in a recording with Caitlin McConnell, who's a community director in Portland, Oregon, and Colin Grover, who is a vice president and corporate treasurer in Houston, Texas. And then also Christina Gibson is on that recording too. She was a first volunteer, and she is now a partner in the D7 organization. And so that audio recording kind of gets a little bit more into the details around D7. Some stuff that in that recording, I mention basically an answer to a question that Jessica Stillman had asked. And she wrote an article that said for 95%, she wrote an article in Inc.com. Oh, and I'll put all the references in the links so you can see the references. The article, the title of the article was, "For 95% of human history, people worked 15 hours a week. Could we do it again?" And there's a study behind that that speaks to that. And then there's another study in a book called Tribe, where they were working 12 hours a week. Early humans, or pre-agriculture, basically, because And so, but when I tell people that, they're like, that's insane. We're not going to go to a 15-hour work week. I'm like, well, and it wouldn't be exactly 15 hours, in my mind, it's 20 hours, because there would be breaks. I'm a big believer in breaks, and how effective we can be when we do take breaks. But, and not everybody's going to want to work that few hours. Some people want to work more, and that's, your prerogative, right? And there's something else in global warming that I guess I'll touch on that first too. I have a strategy. I put a strategy together with the help of, so the D7 idea was probably about 100 different people, lawyers and finance people, and, just feedback from folks, and then the people that are helping with it, and then also the for this global warming thing, roughly 30 people and 2 focus groups, and some people had a lot of input, and I appreciate everybody's input. But for the global warming part of it, the idea is that we shift toward a place where we mostly, most of the products we purchase are carbon neutral, and meaning that they do not have greenhouse gas emissions associated with those products. And on the website on D7 gets into the details around that. How would you do that? And it's a voluntary decentralized carbon tax is the idea, where like any product that we have today, let's say it's this pen, right? Let's say it's a $3 pen. Maybe there's another dollar that needs to cover the cost of carbon capture and long-term storage for this pen, right? There was some carbon that it took to get it to you, to produce it, and all that kind of stuff. So we have the option to pay a little extra, right? Almost like recycling. Do you want to pay for your pollution? So I just want to expand a little bit more on the voluntary decentralized carbon tax. The idea would be that the money that is sent to given to the business could go to either private organizations or government organizations, depending on where the customer specifies. And you could designate that when you pay the tax. You can also designate, how much of that you'd be comfortable with the business using for administrative costs to deal with this carbon tax. But in addition to where the money, what organization the money goes to, it doesn't just have to go to carbon capture and long-term storage. It could also go toward helping us transition off fossil fuels or away from greenhouse gases in a variety of ways. Mass transit, more bus routes, and different types of high-speed rail and other ideas that people had suggested, and some of those are on the website. More details on the website. And thank you all for your suggestions. And the other thing is for reporting and for accountability purposes. It's helpful. These organizations can report, and D7 will be one of the reporting organizations. There'll be others, I'm sure, where businesses can register that they will be accepting the carbon tax in this carbon tax directory, but also they report back and say, hey, this is how much money we took in, and this is where the money went. This is where we gave the money. And we can anonymize that data, and so that we can see at a granular level, and in this city or this state, this is they're paying their carbon taxes, and we can see corresponding reductions in CO2 emissions, and then we can compare across globally, essentially, to see where folks maybe need some help, or maybe it's going really well and we have some good ideas that we want to leverage from those areas. And then basically this allows us to do something today, and it's possible that some governments may pass laws around this, but in the interim, or it's possible for us as humans to just take responsibility for our personal pollution and begin to cover the cost of that. And part of the inspiration for this is the idea that even though more and more of us are aware that CO2 emissions are caused by humans and are causing global warming, we are still increasing our CO2 emissions year over year. And I'll provide references on that. And so this gives us a way to, break through the stalemate, essentially from the left and the right, to do something now, so that we can hopefully prevent some of the worst potential aspects of global warming. I did also want to touch on one other aspect of the D7 platform that I hadn't talked about, and they may be similar to other platforms as well, is that it is a democratic platform, and thus free speech is an important component of any democracy. And so we will have a free speech forum. And many people may not realize this, but on a crypto platform, and D7 will be a crypto platform, there would be the option to add an additional field in the transaction table, right? Any crypto platform could do this, to add a comment field or a text field for text or URLs.
so that people can speak freely. And what that essentially means is that free speech is inevitable globally. And in a way, we can embrace that, right? The By giving voice to minority points of view, either they're pro-democratic or other points of view that we may not agree with, it allows those voices to have a place at the table, and so that they don't feel like they have to go and resort to more extreme measures, sometimes violent measures, so that their voices can be heard. And there's a good book called Nonviolent Communication if you choose and you want to engage with those individuals. And potentially you might learn something in the process, and they might learn something. And there could be a lot of benefit there that ways too. But I just wanted to call that out because I don't make it completely obvious in the audio that free speech is not so much optional as it is inevitable. And thank you for everybody that's done work around that as well. So now I'm gonna flip back into the rest of the recording. Thank you all. But so the idea, or how do we get there? To shed light on that, I'm going to share something else. Right. In 2014, there was a study done, and the study was done at the University of Colorado. There were 10 students and facilitators, and the students were asked to do something kind of out of the ordinary, right? They were asked to draw a picture, and that picture was that they were going to see in 2 days' time. And so essentially the students just drew what they thought they were going to see in 2 days. And they, and then in 2 days' time, they were shown one of two pictures. One picture was the price of silver would go up, and one picture was the price of silver would go down. Okay. Basically what they were trying to do was predict what the movement of silver, using this technique. And they did accurately predict it for 7 weeks in a row. Now, the probability of them doing that for 7 weeks in a row is 1 in 128. There was another study done in conjunction with the Stanford Research Institute and the CIA. And some people say, oh, CIA, well, they're just, we can't rely on them. And I mean, I guess the Stanford Research Institute, I think we hopefully rely on them at least. But they had, it was published in the Wall Street Journal and the Chicago Tribune at the time in 1973. It's possible they published it and people were like, I don't know if I believe this, right? But they predicted the stock market for 9 weeks in a row. And the probability of them doing that was 1 in 512 for 9 weeks in a row. Okay. Because it's a 50-50 shot every time, right? And so, very unlikely. I learned about this 2 years ago, and then I tried it. And I was like, well, let's just see if this works, right? And the way I did it was I'm going to do a video just on this, so I don't want to get too much details about it. But in any case, I saw this picture in my mind. It was kind of the color of fire, basically like an outline, right? And I saw it, and then I would run this random picture generator from the internet that had 900,000 different images. And so literally it could have been any one of those 900,000 images, right? But I was picking two pictures, right? One was the stock that I was predicting was going to go up and what the stock was going to go down. I was trying to see what the stock was going to do. And I did that for 5 days. And the first 4 days, I got it right. But not only did I get it right, but the image, the outline in my mind was very similar to the picture that the random generator came up with. It's not an AI generated. It's just, it's a picture, that a human took. And the fifth day, I read a little too much into it, and I tried to read into the outline. I was like, what does this mean? What is this actually? Is this a teacup or whatever? And so, but I learned from that. And I was like, okay, don't read into it. Just let it come, and see what's there. And then the sixth day, it was just, the outline was so clear. The image was the outline of the image was so clear that to what I saw next, that it was just hard not to believe that it's possible, right? And for some of you, imagine, until you do it yourself, it will be hard to believe. And it was for me too. Until even on that, the fourth day, the fifth day, I'm like, maybe, even though it was so similar. But the sixth day, I was like, there is no way that what I just saw in my mind could be that similar. 1 in 900,000 chance. That's impossible. That doesn't make any sense. My science brain was like, okay. And basically, we think it's through quantum physics. It's a concept called quantum entanglement, where essentially we're quantum entangling with our future selves. And it's what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, before we really understood what was happening there. It's quantum entanglement is used in communication technologies today. And it's basically two different, I think they're called quarks. I don't know what they're called, but they're entangled. And then, when you move one, the other one moves with it because they're entangled. And so we're entangling with our future self. And when I talk about these systems, you can look at that and get a little bit of understanding if you'd like to try it yourself. But why am I bringing, that part up, right? Associative remote viewing. Because for the past 2 years, I've been I've been designing this system with the help of many other people, right? But I'm also using that technique to look into future realities where we actually do move to a 20-hour work week. And then asking myself, or what am I not seeing? In that reality, what happens now? What do I need to know? And then helping, guide my steps a little bit. And we can use it to predict earthquakes. We can use it to design, choose which medicines to develop, which not, and design spaceships, which is I'm very interested in doing. And so we have a lot of different options that we can leverage this skill for, right? But one of them is, for me, moving toward this 20-hour work week, all of us, so we have more time to sleep and to spend with our loved ones and play a little bit, right, as adults. And basically, the idea is that that is a future that does exist. And this is, these D7, which is the organization that I founded, and other organizations like it, will be a means for us to get there. We go to these employee-owned organizations and we have the means to negotiate for our work hours and argue that. And the other thing is being able to do this associative remote viewing works a lot better if we're able to essentially work within the natural limitations of the human body. And most of us today are sleep deprived, and it's hard. It's not impossible to do it if you're sleep deprived. It's just harder. We can design better products with less bugs, and create less problems at work because we're tired, or not being very nice to each other, in part because we're exhausted. And then creating mistakes that our future selves basically have to deal with. But this allows us to just waste less time at work and be able to spend that time at home, or sleeping, or in play. And so that's kind of the concept. And D was originally for democracy, and 7 meant something, but
I don't I don't feel like it applies anymore. It's complicated, but I think of D7 as a chord. Like in music, there's many other chords, and the idea is that I would like D7 to be one of maybe many different democratic economies. Or that's what I'm hoping for. That's what we're hoping for. And like 3.3% is what I'm thinking. No bigger than 3.3% of the overall democratic economies, because I don't want it to be so big that, were we to have some kind of an issue, that it could threaten the entire ecosystem. Um, there is an ARV, or an associative remote viewing community, that you can join if you want to participate and learn in that. I'll talk about that in the associative remote viewing recording. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay. The last thing is, Margaret Mead's concept of like, only, oh man, I can't remember the quote now. Did I take it out? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And honestly, we're going to meet more than a small group on this one. But I appreciate, that all the people that have been the small group thus far. And there's been a lot of support from people, and people that have joined D7 already. And, help give me the strength to keep going with this and believe that this is possible. And if you are open to it, please do join. It will be very helpful, so that I don't have to go back to a regular, 50 to 60 hour a week job in software development. And with any luck, that my daughter, when she grows up, she gets to work, 20 hours a week, and she gets to see her kids more than I get to see her. And I hope that for all of us. Okay. Thank you all for listening. And there'll be links to the website with all the other stuff and references. Okay. Thanks.